Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, we are from Group 6 and today we would like to present about academic writing for publication. Our members of Group 6 are Nuro, Putri Dewantari, Titin ratna sari, and Khoirul Anam. Okay, for the next, there are our material about academic writing for publication. Number 5. Did I plagiarize fighting plagiarism in English academic writing? And number 6 is graph through paragraph, explaining data in writing. And number 7 is abstract, straight to the point. And number 8 is strategies for effective proofreading and editing for publication. And the first material is Did I plagiarize? Avoiding plagiarism in English academic writing. Plagiarism is presenting someone else's work or ideas as your own, with or without their consent, by incorporating it into your work without full acknowledgement. All published and unpublished material, whether in manuscript, printed, or electronic form, is covered under this definition. Okay, the next is different types of plagiarism. Okay, for the first is about original source. This is example. Many writers shy away from summarizing, perhaps because they don't want to take the trouble to go back to the text in question and wrestle with what it says, or because they fear that devoting too much time to other people's ideas will take away from their own. When assigned to write a response to an article, such a writer might offer their own views on the article topic while hardly mentioning what the article itself argues or says. At the opposite extreme are those who do nothing but summarize, lacking confidence perhaps in their own ideas. These writers to overload their text with summaries of others' ideas that their own voice get lost. And since their summaries are not animated by writers' own interests, they often read like more lists of things that extinct of Y says, with no clear focus. Kraft and Rickenstein, 2014. Notice that the writer has borrowed Kraft and Rickenstein words and has also largely maintained the author's method of expression and sentence structure. The underlined phrases are directly copied from the source or changed only slightly. Even if the student had cited Kraft and Rickenstein as the source of the content, the passage will be plagiarized, because no quotation marks indicate that the phrase comes directly from the original text. Okay, and the next is patchwork of plagiarism. It's still based on original source. And why this is plagiarism? This paraphrase is composed of pieces in the original author's language, underlined, and pieces in the new author's word. They are all rearranged into a new pattern, but none of the borrowed pieces are in quotation marks. Thus, even though the writer acknowledged the source of the material, the underlined phrases are falsely presented as the new author's own. This is plagiarism. Okay, for the next is substitutive plagiarism. Okay, it is the example about substitutive plagiarism. And why this is plagiarism? This paraphrase, much like patchwork plagiarism, is composed of the original author's language, but some words have been changed to be synonym, underlined, to avoid direct plagiarism. All of the ideas, most of the sentence structure, and most of the words are from original source, and none of the borrowed ideas or words are attributed to the original author. That means that the words are present the new authors, which means that this is also plagiarism. Okay, and the next is good citation. And why this is a good paraphrase? And it is the example of a good citation. Why this is a good paraphrase? The writer has documented Kraft and Rickenstein's material and specific language by direct reference to the author and by quotation marks around language taken directly from the source. Notice that the writer has changed craft and Frankenstein language and the sentence structure. This is also a method an author can use to add material to fit his or her new purpose. And the next is quotation. Use the exact words of the original author. Must reference the original source, including page number. Use quotation marks around the original words. And the last is the text produced in the length of the original text quoted, only ellipses are used. The next is summarizing. Use the writer's own words to express the main idea of an article to study, including only the main points. Significantly short than source material. Must reference the original source, and in longer summaries you may want to paraphrase to remind your reader you are summarizing. Okay, for the next is paraphrasing. Use the writer's own words to explain or interpret another author's ideas. Must reference the original source. And the last is maybe longer or shorter than the length of the original text. Tip: don't change around the author's words or substitutive synonym. Read the passage to understand its meaning. Then cover it. And the last is paraphrasing tips. Determine the relevant points and their relationship. Example: what does it say? What does it say that? What does it mean? And number 2 is find linking phrase and expression that can connect the true point, alter however as a result. And the last is find verbs that might establish or their relationship. Example is due to, conspire, can be attributed to.
For the next material is straight to the point, writing effective abstracts for publication. So, the goal of this part is that the participants will be able to identify the qualities of an effective abstract and improve the ability to write an abstract for international publication. The length of the abstract, verb tense used, reasons abstract do not get accepted by publishers, rhetorical moves, and sentence organizations of an abstract. Participants will also learn how to use an abstract rubric to assist in process of their abstract writing and write an abstract using an authentic research paper to demonstrate mastery of objectives. So we are going to have a test, and this is the materials. The first is the true-false card. You can use the color-coded like red or green. The move chart, large paper, 5 different colored markers, and handouts of 3 examples of abstract, 1 set of pairs or small groups, abstract sentence strips, 1 copy for each small group, checklist or rubric, 1 for each participant, authentic research paper for small group. The next is mobile phone with the internet connection, projector, and computer. So here is the activity plan, the version 1, with the rationales and considerations. The hook, true or false activity for 5 minutes. This activity is used the hook to the workshop and helps as a needs assessment where the facilitator can learn about the prior knowledge of the participants. For the true or false activity, please prepare color-coded true or false cards, red for false and green for true. Distribute the true or false cards in advance. For example, the red card is false and the green card is true. Instruct the participants that they will be asked a few true and false questions and will need to show their answer by holding up the true or false card that corresponds to their answer. The next is that the steps that we are going to do. The first is that it should be noted that many of the participants for this workshop have strong background knowledge of abstract writing and are aware of how to write an abstract. For this activity, participants will examine a real-world abstract guidelines from the U.S. Department of Energy. The second, review submissions guidelines from the U.S. Department of Energy, given that many participants have already written abstracts or are in the process of abstract writing for their research. It is helpful to review submissions guidelines for an abstract. Therefore, it is critical that participants understand the importance of reading a submissions guideline carefully. It is important to point out that the submissions guidelines will vary and participants may need to modify an already existing abstract if submitting to multiple journals. To avoid using negative words like rejected, and try to use not accepted as much as possible. The third is introduce 10 reasons why abstracts are not accepted in this activity X as checklist for the next activity. The fourth, provide accepted or rejected examples using real-world examples. Participants will examine reasons why abstracts were accepted and not accepted. The fifth, gather reasons from participants turning the discussions to the audience. The facilitator may be able to check for understanding of the content and bridge any gaps the participants may have. This also allows professors and lecturers the opportunity to share their own experience and knowledge. It is important to respect the participants' title and rank. The last is examine reasons from the experts. The last two slides in these sections are several points made by experts in the academic writing field. They should help validate any points made during the previous discussions and information sharing sessions. With Scopus articles, participants will examine a rubric designed to evaluate the quality of an abstract. Please instruct the participants that they will use the rubric to evaluate the abstract for the features listed in the rubric. To help sell this point, the facilitator will lead a review of a Scopus abstract using the rubric. Using the abstract rubric, participants will examine 3 abstract, distribute copies and the 3 abstract, and have the participants work in a small groups or partners. It is depending on the size of the groups. This examines the information structure, sentence level issues, and other issues. This activity allows the participants to have a hand-on experience with the rubric and evaluate the qualities of accepted rubrics. Make sure each participant is aware of the features of the rubric and understand how they can use this rubric to evaluate their own abstracts. Participants may need to be instructed on what the rubric is and how to use it. Well, the next is the rhetorical moves activity. This will be done by examining as well 5 rhetorical moves found in abstract writing. Swell's point of 5 rhetorical moves used in abstract writing. To demonstrate mastery of objectives, participants will be asked to write an abstract based on an authentic research article. This is also important to point out to participants that they do not need to read an article, but only scan it for the major content and important ideas because this will be the information needed for the abstract. So, here is the play rule. Distribute the short, authentic research articles. The facilitator can use a database or Google Scholar to find an authentic research article. In small groups, participants will read the short, authentic research paper and analyze the paper using what they learned in the workshop. Using the moves chart, participants write the first draft on an abstract. The participants should use the 5 moves to deconstruct the elements of the short research article. The participants will use the markers to label the moves found in the abstract. Walking around the room, each group of participants will write the questions, compliments, suggestions on the other groups of abstracts. To review the content of the workshop, participants can take a short interactive quiz. However, if the internet and connections issues occur, there is a backup review PowerPoint quiz.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Titin ratna sari and I will presentation the material number 6 about explaining data in writing. The first is model 1. In 1990 year, an estimate 8,050 million adults in the world were illiterate. By 2007. The number was estimated to about 700 million, showing a slight decline by about 96 million or 11%. Over the same period, the number of illiterate women declined from about 549 million to 496 million, about 10%, while the number of illiterate men declined from 321 million to 229 million, or 13%. It should be cautioned here that changes in population size strongly influence the statistic. Interpretation of headcount comparisons of illiterate population should be made with this chief in mind. Most sub-regions of the world have registered the least modest decrease in the size of the illiterate population, with Eastern Asia registration one of the most rapid and substantial declines, partly due to the significant advance being made in China. Controversy of this trend, however, the size of the illiterate population increased in several countries in Africa, except Southern Africa, Northern America, Oceania, and Western Asia. In the period 1990 until 2007, Africa added over 32 million illiterates, of which about 23 million or 72% were women. The growth of the illiterate population of Oceania was almost entirely the contribution of the countries of Melanesia. The sub-regions of South Central in Western Asia likewise saw a slight rise in the female illiterate populations, despite showing a reduction in the number of illiterate men. About 99% of the world's illiterate population is concentrated in the less developed regions, and nearly quarters of them live in South Central Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, with the former accounting for over half of the total. The size of the illiterate population in South Central Asia is primarily a reflection of situation in the populous countries of Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan. In the handout 1, the chart below shows the number of men and women in further education in Britain in 3 periods and whether they were studying full-time or part-time. Model answer 1. The bar chart illustrates how many males and females have studied in full-time and part-time education in the following years: 1970 to 1971, 1980 to 1981, and 1990 to 1991. It is clear that in all other time periods, more people of both sexes were involved in part-time education than full-time. Overall, the number of men in full-time education rose from approximately 100,000 to 200,000. Whereas the number of men in part-time education was lower in the early 90s than 20 years earlier. As far as women are concerned, the numbers increased in both sectors of education. The number of part-time female students increased dramatically from 200,000 to 1.2 million in the 20-year period. The amount of women in full-time education went up more gradually from 100,000 in 1921 to just over 200,000 in 1921. This was similar increase for full-time female students. To sum up, the number of women in both sectors increased significantly, while it seems that the rate of men entering part-time education decreased a little and was fluctuating. Model answer 2. This is a bar chart of the number of men and women in further education in Britain in 3 periods. In 1920, most of men were studying part-time, but from 1980, studying part-time has decreased and studying full-time was increased, and in 2020, it was twice as many students as in 1970. On the other hand, women studying full-time were increased are not only full-time. Part-time also were increased. In 1990, studying full-time was 3 times as many students as full-time or part-time, but it changed from 1980, and then in 1990, women were studying part-time more than men, and studying full-time was same number. It shows you women have a high education now. Model answer 3. According to this graph, the number of men and women in further education in Britain shows the following pattern. In the case of male, the number of male has declined slightly from about 100,000 in 1920, 1970 or 71 to about 850,000 in 1920 or 1990 or 91. However, this figure goes back to about 850,000 in 1990 or 91, from about 820,000 in 1980 or 81. The proportion of full-time education has declined during this period. However, the proportion of part-time education has increased dramatically. On the other hand, in the case of female, the number of both full-time education and part-time education has increased during the period, from about 200,000 in 1970 or 71. This figure rose to about 820,000 in 1980 or 81 to about 1,100,000 in 1990 or 91. In terms of full-time education, this figure rose by about 260 to about 900 in 1990 or 91. On the other hand, with respect to part-time education, this figure rose dramatically between 1980 or 81 and 1970 or 71. However, this figure rose slightly between 1980 or 81 and 1990 or 91. Handout 2. Findings. In order to comprehend the reason why students have foreign language anxiety, the researchers distribute an adapted form of Harris et al.'s foreign language classroom anxiety scales of LCAX. The results were shown in table. Directions. Look at the reporting verb table or see below. What are some other reporting verbs that you can use to change the verbs the author selected without changing the meaning? Direction. No. Pretend that you have just completed your research and these are your findings. Using the reporting verbs table from a handout 2, report your findings for the assessment helpful hints. 1. Only focus on the high cost or lower percentage in the data. 2. Remember to vary and verbs you select.
Strategies for effective proofreading and editing for professional publication. The goal of these strategies is: first, participants will be able to edit mechanical error, basic grammatical error, and sentence error, such as sentence fragment and run-on sentence, subject-verb agreement, and verb tense in article they are preparing for publication. The second is, participants will identify possible pattern of error in their writing. And the last is, participants will be able to use effective strategies for editing and proofreading. The time required for the strategies is 2 until 3 hours. Material that you need for these strategies is: first, grammar or strategies checklist and online resource for editing, 1 copy for each participant. The second, 1-page sample paper for jigsaw activity, 1 copy for each participant. And the last is, participants should each bring a paper that they are preparing for publication. Pre-workshop preparation. Before the workshop, Have participants fill out the grammar checklist, then after the sample paper to include the error they indicated that they struggle with. In most cases, though you will probably just need to guess what this will be and include those type of error. The sample paper provided here include the following error types, which are common for Indonesian writer: capitalization, spacing, spelling, verb form, including verb tense, subject-verb agreement and modal, run-on sentence, sentence fragment, clause with missing subject or verb, and singular or plural noun. There are some activities on this strategy. The first one is warm-up, free writing. The second is grammar checklist. And the third is strategy checklist. The fourth, editing practice jigsaw. 5 is peer editing. And the last is question and answer session. Warm-up free writing. Participants write for 15 minutes based on the following prompt. Tell about course you teach or have taken. What do you enjoy about the class? What are some successes and difficulties you or your student have in the class? Trade paper with a partner. The partner comment on the one thing to improve about the writing. Grammar checklist. The purpose of this activity is for participants to reflect on what areas of grammar they understand well. It will also give the presenter an idea of what participants can do. Distribute one checklist to each participant. Give about 3-4 minutes to complete the checklist. Discuss the result in the small group. This will allow the participant to help each other understand the grammar item on the checklist. The presenter can monitor to assess what area participants struggle with most and possibly give feedback and explanation. Finally, have each group choose one area they struggle with from the checklist and share it with the whole group. Save the checklist to use during peer editing activities later in the workshop. Strategy checklist. Have participants complete the strategy checklist. Have a brief discussion about these strategies. Editing practice jigsaw. Split participants into 4 or more groups. Distribute a copy of the sample paper to each participant. Assign each group a different editing text and explain how to mark the error in the paper. For the example, one group could find all the sentence fragments, another group could mark error in the singular or plural form, and so on. Ideally, this task should be related to area of weakness that were reported during the grammar checklist activity. Next, form new group consists of one person from each of the previous group. Group members should each discuss the editing tasks they did in the previous group, pointing out all the errors they discover. Next, the group should decide how to correct its error. During the activity, monitor and assist as needed, making note of any difficulty the participants are having. When the group have finished, give a brief explanation of any difficulty you notice and point out any grammar error that the group missed. The feedback will act as a quick review of basic writing error. Peer editing. Form group of 3 or 4 using their own written work. Each participant should bring a paper they are working on the workshop. Have participants edit each other work. At least 2 people should edit each paper. If the paper are long, they could edit just a portion of the work. Afterward, peer editor discuss what they mark with the author. Identifying any error pattern, compare the grammar checklist the author complete at the beginning of the workshop with the error pattern discovered while peer editing. Discuss any difference between the author perception and their actual error pattern. Question and answer session. Allow participants to ask questions and comment about any of the material from the workshop and about the result of the peer editing activity. Point out the online resource for editing print on the error coding handout.
Group discussion. In our group, we talk about the following question. The first one is, what is the difference between word for words plagiarism and patchwork plagiarism? The second question is, why is patchwork plagiarism considered plagiarism? Why it's not okay in academic writing? And third, did any of these types of plagiarism surprise you? Why? Fourth, are these definitions of plagiarism different in your culture? How? Fifth, what type of plagiarism do you feel is the most common? Why? And the last question is, how can you avoid the plagiarism? The first question, what is the difference between word for word plagiarism and patchwork plagiarism? Word for word plagiarism is quoting the exact word of another person without citing the original author or putting the borrowed work in the quotation mark. Patchwork plagiarism is when a writer copies material from several writers and rearranges the material without putting the praise in a quotation mark or citing the author. Second question, why is patchwork plagiarism considered plagiarism? Why is it not okay in academic writing? The paraphrase is composed of the piece in the original author language or line and placed in the new author word. They are all rearranged into a new pattern, but none of the borrowed piece are in quotation mark. Thus, even though the writer acknowledges the source of the material, the underlined phrase are falsely represented as the new author own. It's not allowed because it means that we are stealing someone else's intellectual property. We should maintain our academic integrity by avoiding plagiarism. Third question, did any of these types of plagiarism surprise you? Why? Substitutive plagiarism. Why? Because this paraphrase, much like the patchwork plagiarism, it's composed of the original author language, but some words have been changed to be synonym. To avoid the direct plagiarism, all of the ideas, most of the sentence structure and most of the words are from the original source, and none of the borrowed idea or word are attributed to original author. That means that the words are presented as the new author, which means that this is also plagiarism. Fourth question, are these definitions of plagiarism different in your culture? How? Plagiarism is representing someone else's work or ideas as your own, with or without their consent, by incorporating it into your work without full acknowledgement. All published and unpublished material, whether in manuscript, print, or electronic form, is covered under this definition. Plagiarism may be intentional or reckless, or unintentional. Under the regulation for examination, intentional or reckless plagiarism is a disciplinary offense. The fourth question, what type of plagiarism do you feel is the most common and why? Paraphrasing plagiarism, rephrasing idea. Paraphrasing means rephrasing a piece of text in your own word. Paraphrasing without citation is the most common type of plagiarism. Paraphrasing itself is not plagiarism so long as you properly cite your source. However, paraphrasing becomes plagiarism when you read a source and then rewrite its point as if they were your own idea. If you translate a piece of text from another language without citation, this is a type of paraphrasing plagiarism. Translated text should always be cited as you are using someone else's ideas. The last question, how can you avoid the plagiarism? Plagiarism means to pass off to someone else's work, intentionally or unintentionally, as your own. This might be by copying or paraphrasing someone published on unpublished work without proper acknowledgement, or representing someone artistic or a technical work or creation as your own. Tips for avoiding plagiarism. The first is don't just copy. The second, use a range of source. Third, develop your own style. And fourth, keep good quality notes. And the last is use quotating mark. I think that's all for our group presentation, and thank you for watching and listening this video. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.